My name is Robert. I am 72 years old, and a year ago I couldn't even get up without help. I remember perfectly the day my daughter found me sitting on the edge of the bed, looking down at the floor, too weak even to stand up. My knees hurt, my ankles trembled, and I felt like my legs were no longer part of me. There hadn't been a fall, nor a sudden diagnosis, just a silent wear and tear that accumulated until it left me like this, weak, frustrated, and afraid. For weeks I thought it was just age, that it was normal, that after 65, legs simply don't respond the same anymore. I resigned myself, until by chance, I heard about a protein many older adults were beginning to use. And the curious thing is that it wasn't meat. In fact, it was something I had never considered as a source of strength. At first, I didn't give it much importance. I thought it was just another one of those tips that circulate and end up in nothing. But something pushed me to try it. I started to gradually include it in my meals without much expectation. What happened next surprised me. And it changed not only my body, but also my way of seeing old age. In this video, I want to tell you what that protein is, how it works in your body, and why it could restore strength to your legs without the need for meat, expensive supplements, or impossible routines. I'm not a doctor, but I am a witness to what really works when everything else stops working. So if you've also felt that your legs aren't the same anymore, if it's hard to get up from the armchair, climb stairs, or just walk without losing your balance, stay with me. Because what you're about to discover could be the first step to trusting your body again. And before we start, I'd love to know something about you. How old are you? From which country are you listening to me? Leave it in the comments. I'll love to read it. Most people don't realize it, but after 60 years old, the body begins to lose something that is not immediately noticeable until it becomes too evident: muscle mass. It's not a sudden drop. There's no alarm, no sharp pain, no emergency visit to the doctor. It's a slow, silent loss, as if one day you woke up and your legs no longer had the same strength. At first, it's barely noticeable. Maybe climbing stairs requires more effort. Then, you realize you need to lean on something to get up from the couch. And later, you find that walking short distances leaves you breathless. I went through each of those stages without really understanding what was happening to me. I thought it was a natural part of aging. But what I was experiencing had a name, and I didn't know it. Sarcopenia. That's the term doctors use to describe the progressive loss of muscle mass that occurs with age. Starting from 30 years old, we begin to lose muscle. But after 60, that loss accelerates, if we do nothing to prevent it. And it's not just about looking thinner or having less strength. Sarcopenia is directly related to the risk of falls, fractures, loss of independence, and an overall decline in quality of life. Often we confuse tiredness with aging, but they're not the same. There are people over 80 who walk better than others at 65. The difference isn't only genetics, but what they eat, how they move, and how much they take care of their muscles. The worst part is that most people don't talk about this. It's not taught in medical consultations. It's not discussed in family gatherings. One simply starts losing mobility, feeling insecure while walking, and accepts it as something inevitable. But it doesn't have to be that way. The good news is that sarcopenia can be stopped. It can even be reversed in many cases. And one of the most important and often ignored steps is the type of protein you consume every day. But before getting to that, you need to understand why the solution isn't simply eating more meat. And that's what I talk about in the next part. Why meat is no longer enough, nor ideal, after 65. For most of our lives, when we thought about strength or muscle, we thought about meat. A good steak, a stew with plenty of chicken, a bone broth. That's what we were taught. And for years, it worked. But something changes when you turn 65. The body no longer processes meat as before. At this age, the digestive system becomes more delicate. The stomach produces less acid, the intestines slow down, and the enzymes that used to break down animal proteins without problems now don't work the same. I know many people like me who after a meat-heavy meal feel heavy. Some bloat, others get gas or even heartburn. And the strangest thing is that it's not allergies or illness, just a digestive system that's aging. My neighbor Manuel, for example, stopped eating red meat after 70 because it made him nauseous at night. My sister Carmen said she felt like she was carrying a stone in her stomach every time she ate chicken. I even thought I was sick until I understood my body was asking for a change. And here comes a key idea. Eat to function, not just to fill up. Nutrition after 65 can no longer be the same as at 30. It's no longer about how many calories you consume or eating enough protein, but about what kind of protein you can really absorb. It's no use eating a plate full of meat if your body can't make good use of it. Also, meat requires more effort from the body to be digested, more energy, more time, more internal resources. And many times after eating it, all we want to do is sleep. Not because we're full, but because we're exhausted. So, does this mean you have to give up meat completely? Not necessarily. But it's time to open your eyes and understand that there are proteins that strengthen without overloading, nourish without draining, and can do much more for our muscles, especially in the legs. What is this miracle protein? Life has a curious way of showing you what you need right when you least expect it. I wasn't looking for a solution. I had already resigned myself to weakness in my legs. But one day, while my granddaughter was showing me a recipe she had learned on the internet, she told me about something called tempeh. I had never heard that word. I thought it was some kind of bread or strange pasta. But no. Tempeh is a plant-based protein made from fermented soy, which has been used for centuries in Asia. The curious thing is that, unlike other vegetarian foods, tempeh contains all the essential amino acids the body needs to build muscle. Yes, all of them. At first I doubted. I had always thought plant proteins were incomplete, that they weren't good for older people. But I started researching. I discovered that being fermented, tempeh not only digests much more easily than meat, but also helps the gut flora, which also starts to fail with age. And it's not just tempeh. There are also other powerful combinations like lentils with brown rice, quinoa with chickpeas, or even plant protein powder made from peas and seeds. The secret is in how foods are combined to provide a complete and absorbable protein. I started out of curiosity. I ordered a block of tempeh from a natural product store, grilled it with a little olive oil and herbs, and was surprised at how good it tasted. But the most important thing was what happened afterward. Within a few days, I felt more energetic. After 1 week, my legs trembled less when I stood up. And after 1 month, I no longer needed to lean on furniture to move around the house. Little by little, my body began to respond. It's true, it wasn't magic, but it was the start of a change I hadn't achieved with supplements, meat, or forced exercise. And it all began with a simple, natural, and easy-to-prepare food. The protein was there. Nobody had just told me about it. And now that you know what it is, I want to tell you how it works in your body and why its effects show first, exactly where you need them most, your legs. How it works in your muscles and why it strengthens the legs in particular. When I started noticing my legs responding better, I wondered, why there first? Why not in the arms or back? The answer lies in how muscles work and how the body responds when you give it what it really needs. You see, when you consume a suitable protein, like the one I mentioned, your body breaks it down into amino acids. These amino acids are like bricks. They travel through the bloodstream and repair and rebuild muscle tissue that, over time, has weakened. But not all proteins do this equally efficiently. The key is that the protein is complete, that is, it contains all the essential amino acids, and above all, that your body can digest and absorb it without effort. The fermentation of tempeh, for example, makes the body not have to work overtime to absorb it. And that, at our age, makes all the difference. Now, why the legs? Because the legs contain some of the largest muscles in the body, like the quadriceps and glutes. They're the ones we use for almost everything: walking, maintaining balance, getting out of bed, climbing stairs, or just standing up. And they're also the first to deteriorate when we don't use our muscles or don't feed them what they need. This is called disuse atrophy. In other words, if you don't use your muscles, you lose them. And in older adults, this happens faster than we imagine. But here's the good news. They're also the first to improve when you give them the right protein. Because the body, even as it ages, still has an amazing capacity to regenerate if you give it the necessary tools. You don't need to lift weights or do intense exercise. Just by walking, getting up, and moving around the house, your legs begin to use that protein to strengthen. The right protein not only nourishes, but rebuilds. It's like each bite sends a message to your muscles. Don't give up yet. I still need you. And when the body gets that message, it responds. I will never forget the day I got out of bed without having to hold onto the edge to lift myself up. It was a simple, almost automatic movement. But for me, it was like recovering something I thought was lost. It had been 30 days since I started including that new protein in my diet. I didn't make big changes. I didn't join a gym. I just changed one thing: the type of food I put on my plate. At first, I didn't notice much. The first week was quiet. But around day 10, I began to notice my legs trembled less when walking. At 15 days, I realized I could climb the 2 steps at the entrance without looking for something to hold on to. And by the end of the month, I moved around the house with a confidence I hadn't felt in years. I felt firmer, more stable. I hadn't felt so steady on my feet in more than a decade. And it wasn't just strength. It was the feeling of trusting my body again, of no longer fearing a fall, of getting up from the couch without thinking twice about how to do it. And I wasn't the only one. My neighbor Anna, who is 78, told me she started trying the same protein in her soups and salads. She confessed her digestion improved, and that, for the first time in a long time, she could do her shopping walking without needing to sit halfway through. Also, my friend George, who lives alone and always cooked with meat, decided to give it a chance. He called me after 3 weeks laughing, saying he felt more awake and less heavy. I don't know what you gave my body, but it's thanking me, he said. And no, this wasn't a miracle. It was consistency. It was trying something new. It was trusting that the body, even with years on it, still listens and responds when treated with care. 30 days may seem little on the calendar, but when you've felt weak for years, 1 month of improvement is like turning on the light in a dark room again. And if that can be achieved in 30 days, imagine what could happen if you make this protein part of your daily life. How to easily incorporate it into your daily diet. One of the things that stopped me at first was the fear of not knowing how to prepare this protein. I was never a great cook, and over the years, when you live alone or feel tired, any recipe with more than 5 steps seems like an impossible mountain to climb. But I discovered something important. You don't need to be a chef to eat well. The protein I started using, like tempeh or combinations of legumes with whole grains, is very easy to adapt. No need to complicate things. The important thing is to incorporate it little by little, every day, at times when your body really needs it. Here's a simple example of a full day based on what I eat nowadays. Breakfast. A slice of whole grain bread with hummus, made from chickpeas, olive oil and lemon, and a hot herbal tea. If you have little appetite in the morning, even just a handful of nuts or a glass of plant-based drink with pea protein powder can be enough. Lunch. A plate of brown rice with lentils, grated carrot, and a little grilled tempeh on top. I season it with turmeric and olive oil. If I can't find tempeh, I use tofu or simply combine 2 different legumes. Snack. A plant-based yogurt with chia seeds or a fruit accompanied by a few spoonfuls of natural peanut butter. You can also prepare a drink with plant protein mixed in water or oat milk. Dinner. A vegetable soup with cooked chickpeas or black beans, accompanied by toast with avocado or lentil cream. As you can see, there's nothing fancy. These are simple ingredients found in any market. And the best thing is, these combinations nourish without leaving you heavy, and they're perfect if you have slow digestion or low energy to cook. For those with low appetite, I recommend spreading protein in small meals throughout the day, rather than forcing yourself to eat one big plate. Even a spoonful of hummus or some toast with legume paste adds more than you think. And if you have trouble digesting legumes, there are already cooked and soft options. Some come in jars or ready-to-use packages. The important thing is not perfection, but consistency, a little every day, because the body doesn't need great efforts, just continuity. What you eat today is the material your body uses to repair itself tomorrow. And if you still have doubts, wait to see the most common mistakes we should avoid when consuming this protein. Common mistakes when consuming plant protein and how to avoid them. When I started telling people I was eating plant protein, many older folks looked at me strangely. Some said, "That doesn't nourish like a good piece of meat." Others, "That's food for young people or those who don't need energy." I even heard someone say, "It probably tastes like nothing." And I understand. I also grew up believing that if there was no meat on the plate, it wasn't food. But over time, I learned there are more myths than truths when it comes to eating well after 65. One of the most common mistakes is thinking that plant protein alone isn't enough, but that depends on how it's consumed. For example, if you eat only a small portion of legumes without combining them with whole grains, you might not be getting all the essential amino acids. But if you combine lentils with brown rice or chickpeas with whole grain bread, you're already forming a complete and easily usable protein. Another mistake is mixing plant protein with too much fat. Many people fry tempeh in lots of oil or accompany a legume dish with fatty cold cuts, which makes digestion difficult. The result? Heaviness, gas, and the false belief that this doesn't do me good. There's also excess sugar. Some plant drinks come loaded with sugar and artificial flavorings. Instead of helping you, that drains your energy. The key is to look for simple versions without added sugar and complement with fruits or natural ingredients. And then there's the issue of flavor. Many think plant protein is bland, but it all depends on how you prepare it. I myself discovered tasty and simple ways like these: sautéing tempeh with garlic, onion, and a bit of oregano, making a chickpea cream with lemon, paprika, and olive oil, using tofu marinated in soy sauce and ginger, preparing lentil burgers with oats, garlic, and cumin. None of this is complicated, and you can prepare it in 20 minutes or less. Also, you can cook once and store for several days. The important thing is not to fall into extremes. Neither idealize plant protein as a magic solution nor discard it due to prejudice. Your body doesn't need you to keep eating like when you were 20. It just needs what it can really use today. And if you learn to avoid these mistakes, your digestion, strength, and energy can improve much more than you imagine. What happens after 90 days? Benefits beyond the legs. 90 days may seem little on the calendar. 3 months pass in a blink. But in the body, that time can make the difference between still depending on others or walking with confidence again. After 90 days of consistently eating plant protein, the changes I started noticing in my legs spread to other parts of my body and life. The first was balance. Before, it was very hard for me to stay steady when turning around or bending to pick something up. I'd had a couple of scares in the kitchen and a mild fall in the bathroom. But by strengthening the muscles, especially in the legs and abdomen, I noticed I no longer staggered so much. I could walk in a straight line without hesitation. I even started leaving my cane unused inside the house. My posture also improved. With more strength in my legs and lower back, I no longer stooped so much. That relieved minor aches in my hips and shoulders. Something as simple as standing in the supermarket line no longer seemed torture. Another important change was reducing my fear of falling. Because losing strength is one thing, but the insecurity it leaves in your mind is another. I walked overly cautiously, avoided certain steps, sat down all the time. But after 90 days, I regained trust in my body. It's not that I felt like I was 40 again, but I did feel capable, steady, more autonomous. And it wasn't just a feeling. I shared my experience with a family doctor friend, and she told me about several studies that have observed real improvements in older adults who consume complete plant protein, especially when accompanied by a diet rich in minerals like calcium and magnesium. It has even been shown to contribute to maintaining bone density, which is key to preventing fractures. Also, because plant protein doesn't overload the body, there is more energy available for other functions: digestion, circulation, sleep. I noticed I slept better, woke up with clearer mental focus, and my daily walks no longer left me exhausted. The most curious thing was that, without trying, I also felt more upbeat, as if having a body that responds gave my spirit its proper place again. And to think it all started with a simple change on my plate. But this journey doesn't end there. In the next part, I want to leave you with a final reflection. Because after everything I've been through, I understood that the most important thing isn't what we eat, but how we decide to care for the body that still holds us up. Sometimes we think it's too late, that once we pass a certain age, the body is doomed to slowly shut down, that what was lost can't be recovered. And without realizing it, we stop trying. But there is no age to start taking care of your muscles. There are only decisions that come too late, or just in time. I was about to give up. I thought my legs would never have strength again, that getting up without help would no longer be possible. That old age was just resignation. But I was wrong. It wasn't a gym. It wasn't expensive medicine. It wasn't a miracle. It was a spoonful of the right food every day. That was the difference between continuing to feel weak or walking again with confidence. You don't need to make big changes. You don't need weights, complex routines, or strict schedules. You only need to give your body what it can use, what it actually absorbs, what actually rebuilds. The right protein, in the right amount, consistently, can make a real difference. So if you're listening to this and have been feeling unstable, exhausted, or disconnected from your own body for a while, don't ignore it. You don't have to change everything. You just need to start. One small action, one plate, one new decision. Your body will notice, and it will thank you. And now I leave you with a question. Do you know someone who needs more strength in their legs? Share this video with them. Maybe like you, they're waiting to hear something different. And if you're ready to try this protein too, tell me in the comments. Share your age and where you're listening from. I'll love to know. Because even if we're far apart, we share something very important, the desire to keep walking with dignity, strength, and hope. Thank you for being here.